any of us ever know what it is to become the perfect version of ourselves.
This is Decoding Superhuman with your host, Boomer Anderson.
Superhumans, welcome back. Can I just say, I absolutely love hosting this podcast. I get to speak with some of the smartest people in the world in my favorite industry, which I'm going to call human performance. Not only that, I've been getting a lot of great feedback from you guys lately about certain guests that you want to have back on, about certain things that you'd like to change, do better, etc. And my aim is to provide you the best information from the best sources all around the world. I'm unbiased in terms of geography. I live here in Europe, but I travel quite a bit, so it's great. And again, thank you for tuning in. Today's guest is someone that I would classify as one smart cookie. His name is Hans Eng, and he's the president and CEO of Eng 3 Corporation. That's ENG 3 Corporation, which is a Seattle-based company that produces applied biophysics technology for the US and international markets. What exactly does that all mean? Well, Hans has 32 years of experience with advanced medical technologies, and that includes working for Johnson & Johnson in Europe and the formation, growth, and successful sale of a German medical implant company. Hans has deep experience in research and development, production, and quality assurance for medical devices. His medical engineering degree from the University of Applied Sciences at Berlin, combined with his background in material science and proteomics, enabled Hans to develop patented technology that underlies the Eng 3's famous Nano V product. And the Nano V is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So what do we get into? What did Hans and I get into? Because as I mentioned, he is one smart cookie, and you're definitely going to want to stick it out for this episode. We talk about what is fourth phase water and bring up the man, the myth, the legend, Gerald Pollack here, and Hans's very close relationship with him. We talk about what benefits does fourth phase water have to the average person, including reduction in oxidative stress, etc., and why Super Bowl winning quarterback Nick Foles uses one pretty much every day. We talk about how to truly identify fourth phase products because there is a lot of fraud out there. So be careful, folks. But Hans, again, is a wealth of information. We delve into everything from really fourth phase to proteomics, etc. And it was a fascinating conversation for me. The show notes for this one are at decodingsuperhuman.com/nanovi. That's Nanovi. And if you want to find more on Hans, as well as Eng 3 or Eng 3 Corp, you can go to Eng 3 Corp, that's ENG3corp.com, or their Eng 3 Corp on Instagram. Before we get into the podcast, however, if you do have an interest in buying one of these devices, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'll give you all the details, but also another alternative is to really just get in touch with Hans. Just tell him I sent you. And now, on with the podcast. Hans, welcome to the show.
Hello, Boomer. Thank you for having me.
You know, I mentioned this earlier, and it's no secret. This is a conversation I've been looking forward to all day long. And Hans, I must say, I had an interesting experience with the Nanovi, which we'll be talking about today, at PaleoFX, and me and my friend Bob Troya, also known as Quantified Bob, have been speaking about it quite a bit ever since. So thank you for giving us the tour of the Nanovi at the PaleoFX.
Thank you, Boomer. It was very interesting to meet you there and a lot of other experts of your field, and looking forward that I have a chance now to this interview with you.
Great. So why don't we get started with your background, Hans, because coming from the engineering world into creating what is effectively fourth phase water Nanovi, if you don't mind connecting the dots for me, how did it transpire?
Basically, everything what we know about fourth phase or ordered water is physics. Some people also call it chemistry. It is an overlapping area. So fundamental biology, fundamental natural science. As an engineer, we are trying to apply this knowledge into technology and to bring it to our benefit. My important part was in this range that my background as an engineer is material science. And as a material scientist, I started to work in the implant industry, developing special surfaces for implants. metal components that you can implant into the body. It was an essential part for us to understand the cell biology because matching tissue at the implants were always important when you design surfaces. So that was a part when I got involved in cell biology, especially in the part of material science in cell biology. And for material science, the content of the cells are proteins. There are thousands of different proteins in the cells. These are biomolecules. They have a slightly different binding energy than the molecules that we know from metal, plastic, glass, and those things. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So they have weaker bindings, but they are molecules. And they underlie the same physics in a lot of regards than other molecules too. So for me, that was the first exposure to these molecules. The next one was the growing information, the growing knowledge about the damaging effects and the damaging process of those proteins in the last 70 years, which are unavoidable, those damages caused by oxidative stress, and how they fall, and also the knowledge that in biology, this damage has to be repaired very fast, otherwise the biological system will not survive. So as more oxidative stress exposure you have, and that is usually very strongly in connection to your performance levels, physical and mentally, as more damage you accumulate and as more the body has to repair, as fast as the body has to repair to work. And that is now the fourth phase of water coming into play. Biology in the last 20 years, in the last 20 years, we found out that the fourth phase of water, or this ordered water, is an essential part for the last molecular building process, that is the protein folding process in the cells. Mm-hmm. If that is not there, protein do not fold, can execute their function. So we applied all this knowledge of the fourth phase of water, basically to design a device that helps the biological system, like us humans, to combat faster, to counterbalance faster the damages that we accumulate through oxidative stress.
Before we get too deep in it, how would you describe the Nano V to someone who hasn't seen one? And of course, I'll link to this in the show notes, which will be found at decodingsuperhuman.com/Nanovi. That's Nanovi. But how would you describe it to someone who has not seen the device before?
The size of the device is a small printer. So, desktop size, you put it on a table, you have to connect it to power. And on the side of the device is a gooseneck, a flex arm. This flex arm you can bend in all your possible directions, and out of the flex arm is an air stream that has to blow into your face, into your mouth and nose area. Optionally, you could use and attach a nasal cannula. Then you have a little bit more freedom to move your head. Otherwise, you have to pay attention that your mouth-nose area is in the airstream that is coming out. But that's all. A little monitor is on it that shows that the device is on, how many minutes are running or still running for your treatment, and that is basically everything. On top of it is a small water container that includes distilled water, because we have to create humidity that we treat in the device so that the airflow will blow little water droplets which have a very thick layer of easy water, of the fourth phase of water on its surface, so that it can touch and reach your mucous membrane.
So these drops of easy water reach our mucous membrane. So why don't we do a little bit of a deeper dive on the easy water? How does this exactly work in our cells? Because you touched a little bit on the protein folding, but I think there are many people that are going to be listening to this and saying, whoa, fourth phase. They may not have read Gerald Pollack's work. They may not have seen your device. Do you mind going into that just a little bit more?
We have, for the same physical product, we have different names. We can call it fourth phase, like Gerald Pollack, with whom we work together. We can call it easy water. That is the short name for exclusion zone water. Or we can call it ordered water. Everything is regarded to each other. The exclusion zone is denser packed because of a higher order of the water molecules. They are closer together. As a result, when those kind of material attributes are changing so much that we can have different phase, and that is why it is called force phase. We have a higher density, we have a different electricity, we have a different absorption spectrum. So the water is actually, when it is in the ordered state, in a kind of different phase, the force phase. We can see it, and it is being used in biological system for a very important process, and that is for the protein folding process. To your question, in the cells, in aerobic systems, that means biological systems that are metabolizing oxygen and therefore creating free radicals, there's always a very active oxygen free radical being produced. Excited oxygen has to emit the excitation energy. That is an electromagnetic energy, which is, and that is a very interesting thing, which is absorbable by water. Water does not have the transparency for this electromagnetic energy, like for blue, green, or anything like this. It is an invisible wavelength, but water absorbs it. As a result, water builds on its surface higher density of the water molecules. So in the cells, when this kind of electromagnetic energy is emitted by a free radical, this higher dense water is built on all surfaces which are connected in the cell. That means all the proteins which are floating in the cell, the building surfaces, are being surrounded by this force phase of water. That is an important step now for the proteins. The last process of the molecular structuring is a folding process. That is a change of entropy. A low-ordered entropy is when the protein is unfolded, is not in his final stage. The change from low entropy, from a low order to a higher order, this entropy change, is possible when is a low-ordered product is being surrounded by a higher-ordered media, which is in this case the water. And the layers are big enough for a specific protein molecule. The molecule will switch over, will change its state from unordered to ordered, and the water molecule around the protein will lose their order. So that is a very fast process. It takes only nanoseconds. First, the energy is being emitted by a free radical. Very fast, the higher order, the force phase of water, is being created around proteins. And in a very fast, in a nanosecond step, the protein will kick, fold, and the water will lose its order. And that is an ongoing process that we need to have good performance in our cells and basically healthy cells.
And so as a result, if this protein folding process is sort of slowed down or handicapped in any sort of way, that can lead to uncontrollable oxidative stress and hence inflammation. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a lot of possibilities to recognize the accumulation of damages. We should not forget that our body, the human body, is made out of minimum 900,000 different proteins. Most of the proteins we have no clue about. We know something about 30,000, but more than 850,000 proteins, we have no clue about what they are, what they do, and where they perform. But whenever one of those proteins is losing its function, we will run in a problem. Some of these problems we know, we call them chronic diseases, we call them fatigue, we call them loss of performance, or we also can say we simply are aging by losing protein functions because we accumulate more and more damage. By helping the body to regenerate and to repair those damages, we would slow down the process of losing optimal functions. And in some cases, we actually can reinstall functions that we lost, and we perform better, we feel better, we are better.
If you look at a lot of the lectures that Gerald Pollack gives, he talks a lot about the role of light in this and how light sort of, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong here, light splits the water molecule. The water molecule, the negative side of it, attracts to a hydrophilic cellular membrane, so to speak, and that creates potential energy within the cell. there's a role of light in here. How does the absence of light or sunlight impact this? Does it impact protein folding definitively, or am I off?
We have to look at these different things that we are talking in science, the different locations. So one thing is the wavelengths that are absorbable by water are in different areas. So the wavelengths that I introduced and talked in the beginning, that is emitted by an excited oxygen atom, that is a wavelength that is permanently emitted inside our body, which is actually also one of the wavelengths that we are using with our device. And then we have wavelengths that is emitted by the sunlight, and that is able to transfer to our skin, and then is being absorbed in the cells in the water, which are close to the skin. Usually when we talk in this field about electromagnetic energy that is absorbed, we are using the term light. Even if a lot of this electromagnetic energy is not visible, but we call it light because it's better understandable for the public what we are talking about. The sun is always emitting this specific energy that we produce in our body. It's part of the spectrum. And when it hits the water molecule or the cells are, the water is absorbing it and is done doing a lot of different things. It creates this fourth phase of water. Like I mentioned in the beginning, the fourth phase of water has a lot of different attributes. One of the things, for example, it is negative charged because the molecules have to move closer together, they're pressing the negative charged electron to their surface. So at the end, we build a negative charge on the surface of the exclusion zone, and that has a lot of effect in other things. That is why we are negative charged, that is why our cells are negative charged when we measure it, and why certain kind of processes, like a kind of pumping process, it's possible now to observe and to explain why that happens in biological systems.
Thank you for taking me through that, because I just wanted to clarify, and you did a great job of doing that. So thank you. Let's talk about the Nano V. The process that I went through was, I may have hogged some time there in Austin, but I went through sort of a 15-minute charge where I was breathing in this, what I'll, for lack of a better term, call humidifier type water into my nose and mouth for 15 to 20 minutes. Do you mind just walking through that process, sort of why it's that amount of time and what's going on internally in terms of the benefits?
On the exhibition, you saw the most potent device that we have in our production. We use this most potent device because 15 minutes is, even at the exhibition, a long time for a visitor to spend at one exhibitor, and therefore we have only the most potent devices there. The time that the device is used is basically in regard to the condition of the user. Some people can use the high-end device not for even 5 minutes. They can feel it, and the impact could create a kind of dizziness, lightheadedness. Other people could say after they're using the high-end device for half an hour, oh, I don't really feel anything. It depends on what kind of state you are and how in tune you are with your body. As more likely you have a stress level, like I said, a physical or mental stress level, as more likely you will feel this in a very short time. After the initial time of maybe 1 week, that will or should fade away because repair happens. You will not recognize the repair in those areas. It's now only a question how fast you damage your body again. So that would be necessary for another repair. The use of time for the device cannot be overdone. If you have the time and you would take a nap, you can sleep with it. You can use it several times per day. That you cannot over repair a system. You can only very nicely maintain a constant improved or assistant repair process.
when you're breathing this in, and it is repairing, but can we walk through just sort of how it's repairing? It's negating oxidative stress. Is that right?
Yeah. Oxidative stress causes the damage mainly on proteins. So these guys are not now functioning anymore. The body tried to produce enough easy water by itself through more oxidative stress generation to counterbalance the damages and to initiate the repair. So with Nanovi, we produce the same easy water on the surface of droplets, which are very thick surfaces, and we push these with the airstream to your mucous membrane. Mm-hmm. When you inhale it, the higher amount of easy water on the droplets and the lower amount of the easy water of your droplets that you are made out, will balance out. These droplets will hand over some of the easy water. That is a change of energy. It's almost a kinetic energy exchange. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a game that you can find sometimes on desks where the metal boards are hanging on a string, and you lift one on the left side, you let it loose, and then it goes through a chain of different boards, but only the last one will move. So this kind of kinetic energy transfer happens then in the body. Mm-hmm. And that is why it only has to touch our mucous membrane, and it will cascade through our entire body.
Reducing oxidative stress, very important benefit that everybody's going to get. Now, you mentioned some of the people that have used this in terms of athletes and other people. A lot of the listeners here are more of the executive high stress, high performer types. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's a benefit there for negating and sort of offsetting oxidative stress, but you've had some interactions with some very interesting people, and I'm pointing towards the Philadelphia land because there's a decent crowd of people from Philadelphia that listen to this podcast. Are you able to comment with some of the clients that you've had use and continue to use the Nanovi?
Yeah, we can easily divide this in 3 blocks of users. One of the users is the group, mainly older people who accumulated damages, and these damages are manifesting themselves in chronic disorders. Chronic disorders are mainly caused by oxidative stress damage. That is a group that accumulated a lot of damage. The body was not able to balance it out. And with our technology, we help them to reduce their problems. So the second group is the entire, we call it wellness or prevention group. These are people which usually high educated or better educated, understand things like Pollack books, like fourth phase of water that is out for 20 years. They know those things, and they are looking forward to prevent damages, to avoid damages, and keep their system how that is right now. Good, in shape, healthy aging, and constantly performing. And the other group, these are these athletes. And these athletes are, from the viewpoint of oxidative stress, not only sports athletes. So everybody who thinks, everybody who has a high mental performance to do every day is an athlete, but they are doing it with their head. So they are running a marathon with their head, with their brain every day, because they are accumulating for their thought process and for their activities the same amount of oxygen like a marathon runner. The only thing is oxidative stress happens, in this case, in the head. As an effect, you can lose a lot of functions which are essential for your life, but which are based and initiated basically in your head. Mm-hmm. A lot of things are hormones, certain kind of enzymes that are related to behavior, your sleep, a lot of things from your autonomic nerve system are getting affected by damages in those areas. Mm-hmm. Because we have more and more demand from our environment to become athletes in the mental area, we see that more and more people out of this group are using this technology, not only on themselves, they also, because it's so easy to use, so short to use, they can share it. And we see that it is being a tool for corporate wellness, and people actually also take it into the companies, share it with a lot of colleagues, and have all the benefits from this device every day.
So I could bring it into my office, share it with my colleagues over at the WeWork down the street, and everybody should be thanking me because we've enhanced their longevity, right?
You're right. if you have a place where you go every day or several times per week, that could be your fitness, your health center or such a thing. Maybe you can find it there, or they installed it there, so that you can use it more on a regular basis. The device is not necessarily only in the price range of a smartphone.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more expensive. But when you can share it, and it should last for many, many years, 10 years and more, then it should be easy to share and have completely full benefit for you.
So you mentioned earlier that you converse with Dr. Pollack, right? And a lot of the concern I have coming out of the easy water world is there's some products out there that say they are, but aren't really. You mentioned at PaleoFX that you're doing some work on getting this easy water sort of certification. Do you mind commenting on that?
If you are in an area in the market, in a product area that is so new, and that is something that you cannot feel and not taste, you have to work together with the scientists. You have to be there to exchange and constantly to learn what is in use in there. And we are doing it since years. We are on the important conferences with scientists. We work with a lot of universities worldwide. And I personally know a lot of very leading scientists in this area, not only Professor Pollack. Vladimir Velkov is one guy from Russia who made amazing research and results in the last 30, 40 years in the proteomic, in the protein folding process. For us, one part is you have to prove that you produce easy water, because we see it too. There are companies out who are saying, "Oh, we can bottle easy water and you buy it in the shop." I say, "Come on, read the science paper. You cannot bottle easy water. Easy water has only a certain lifetime, and there's a lot of possibility to break easy water, and you have nothing else than bulk water again." So that is out there. But we would like to also to push the envelope in the science always a little bit forward together with scientists. And in our case, we work together with a group in Italy, and they actually were able to prove and to certify that we produce easy water that comes out of our device. The quality and the quantity is possible to prove. And by pushing it a little bit, maybe we can see that certain kind of standards are being implemented in the industry. That you can prove, or you have to prove to your consumers, that you're actually doing it, what you're writing on it.
A key takeaway for people, I guess, would be if it says it's bottled easy water, it's probably not bottled easy water. Is that right?
It's probably not bottled easy water.
Okay.
Because only to follow a certain kind of process doesn't mean that you have the end result. The simplification of those books, like, you only have to shine a certain electromagnetic energy on water, and then you have easy water, jumps over a lot of chapters in the book where it says, but you have to follow this and this and this.
So I had the pleasure of experiencing the higher end model of the 15-minute or 20-minute Nano V experience. Do you mind just talking about the other models that are available?
Each other model is half the performance of the previous one. So you use the EXO one, and we say if you use the EXO one 15 minutes, that is comparable with the Pro, Nano V Pro, 30 minutes use. And that is, the Pro is equivalent with 1 hour use of the smallest device, the Nano V Eco. So Eco 1 hour, Pro 30 minutes, EXO 15 minutes. Each of the device you can use as long as you want. These 15, 30, and 60 minutes are only a differentiator of the performance levels of these different devices.
And just a general guideline, do you have general recommendations for people on how, you mentioned there's no limit to how often you can use it, but just what would be good practices? Let's say I had a sort of lab, if you will, that I could go to and play with all of these devices, and one of them was the Nano V. How often should I be going to that lab?
Generally, if you could do it every day, it would be perfect. Then you would be on a level like companies or private people would do it. Yeah? If you have only a possibility to go to a location and you have to make time for it, then make the time after the damaging event. So if you increased your oxidative stress more than usual, then go and repair or assist somebody to repair and recover faster. So that could be after a sport event, after running a marathon on a weekend, after making a test for an exam or anything like this, where you use a lot of mental work, or any other thing. Then you would do the best thing when you do it. It's the same thing like in clinics, in medical clinics, where they do treatments that could or will introduce more oxidative stress, like oxygen treatments, like hyperbaric chamber treatments. They're using this Nano V treatment then after they did the oxygen-induced treatment.
If I'm going to set up my ideal workout, the Nano V is going to be my cool down, effectively. Is that right?
That would be perfect. Okay. Yes.
Awesome. So we've covered a lot of ground here, Hans, and I really appreciate you taking me through all of the science that is fourth phase in the Nano V, because it's fascinating to me how this works. And you mentioned that state of euphoria. I was in it after 10 minutes, but I just enjoyed it so much that I just sat there and kept taking it in. But in terms of final two questions for you, and then I'm going to ask where people can find out more about the Nano V. But first question I have that I ask everybody is, what do you do to get yourself in a peak state of focus?
We have the Nano devices here in the office.
Okay.
So everybody is using it. I have another very nice situation. I have in my little office here 8 Nano V devices.
Can you ship one to me? No, I'm joking.
These are the one that we ship out. They are in the shipping department. No, these devices are here for long-term testing.
Okay.
So they are running since several years. So, but I have the benefit of having 8 devices in my room constantly running.
Wow. So you're constantly getting bombarded with easy water, right?
It is here in the environment. Next thing is we are located in Seattle, here in the US. So we have the benefit of having a little bit more humidity than a lot of other cities.
Absolutely.
It's rainy and wet here. So I do not have to sit with all these devices here directly in front of it. So with the high humidity that transfers the easy water droplets better, I'm exposed to it constantly since years. I know that I have a benefit out of it. I understand the biology. I do not have to feel it, because I also do not feel when my DNA is being damaged. Therefore, I cannot feel it when it's being repaired. I do not feel it hurting when I age, even if I look in the mirror, and sometimes I can cry. But the understanding the biology is an important thing for me, and that is why we are using it here.
Before I get into my next question, I imagine you can measure the effects of this by looking at inflammation markers, right? And doing a simple blood test.
Yeah, we did. That is part of we are a medical device. So that's part of a medical evaluation to show that the effects actually happen. So we did double-blind placebo-controlled studies at universities. We used, for example, inflammation markers as one of those markers that increase around 20%, that improve around 20%, as well as the detoxification of lactate after lactate production, and we see the same thing in the DNA repair after DNA got higher induced of damages by athletes, for example.
So you're doing like an epigenetic analysis there.
We are located in Seattle, but these tests were done in Vienna and in Berlin. Okay. So you can easily put markers on DNA double-strand breaks, and count, or better, digital systems today count how many breaks are there and how many are there after you use the device for a week.
Very cool.
So comparison. Measurement, a lot of things you can measure as long as your diagnosis technology is measuring a protein function. And lots of diagnosis devices are measuring protein function. Oxygen saturation with a little oximeter on your finger measures the ability of your body to transport oxygen and to utilize it. Yeah. Not only if the hemoglobin transports it and it works, yeah, it measures all proteins which are involved in the exchange of the oxygen. You can measure the oxygen utilization. So by exhaling air, you can measure how much unused air you exhale. Yeah? If your mitochondria are not producing enough cell energy, which is a protein function, you will inhale more unused oxygen because it's not being processed in your mitochondria. Those devices are also called metabolic resting rate sensors and those things. The heart rate variabilities. Yeah? You need a good heart rate variability tester, and then you can see how your autonomic nerve system is being impacted by it. Yeah? So there are a lot of technologies today out there that measure protein function. Yeah? Underlying it is a protein function, and then you can see how good you do with using this device. Yeah.
That's perfect. I'm going to have to ask you afterwards, but I would love to get those studies and just link to them in the show notes. But final two questions from me. What is your favorite book on peak performance?
My favorite book on peak performance.
Or performance in general.
That is different. My performance is always more steered to the mental performance. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. You can talk about those books too.
Yeah. That has more things to do with understanding the biology, yeah, understanding social development based on environment that is changing for us, yeah, and adapting those changes. So that is more in that direction. I do not have one specific book which I say, okay, that is favorite, because, like I said, everything is in flow. Yeah, a little bit later, another good book comes out and describes things. Yeah, so there are a lot of very interesting things in that area.
Where can people go to find more about Eng 3 and the Nano V?
We have a website that is called eng3corp.com. Or you type in Eng3 Nano V in any search engine, you will find us. We are located in Seattle. We are manufacturing the products here in Seattle. And of course, we are working together with the University Seattle here, where Dr. Pollack is also located, and with others in Europe. We have distributors in different countries all over the world. Yeah, you can connect us. We would guide you to the distributor who is covering in your area. That's basically everything. You would find us on a lot of other podcasts, yeah, in a lot of other information areas. We are on conferences explaining this to different professionals in the field of performance, medical or prevention areas. Yeah. So there's a good range that you could run into us somewhere. Yeah.
Perfect. And also I'll link to some of your social media accounts on the website as well. But Hans, thank you so much for taking the time for this conversation. As I mentioned before, I was looking forward to this one all week and did not disappoint. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Boomer. Thank you for having me.
And to all the superhumans out there for listening, have an epic day. Superhumans, like I said, one smart cookie. Do you want to see a follow-up episode with Hans? Because before I actually parted ways with Hans in this conversation, he mentioned the idea of having another episode on proteomics in general. Is that something you'd be interested in? If so, drop me a line at podcast@decodingsuperhuman.com. I would love to hear from you. If you can go to your favorite podcasting source and just leave us a 5-star rating. I really appreciate it. You know, there's been a few new ratings coming up lately, and they're all very helpful in getting the word out. I love seeing what countries they come from too. It's fascinating. Thank you guys, and have an epic day.